Yes. Are we live in our channel?
Yes.
Streaming. So I'll put a pause and then we could switch it on once the prayer starts.
Okay, fine.
All right. We are online.
Wow, at last in our channel.
Hi, Divya. Good morning to you. She is joining us from Canada, so it's a morning for her. This is Nirmala here.
Hey, Nirmala, how are you?
Very well, Divya. Thanks for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you in.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. And Divya, unfortunately, the poll questions are like more direct questions, and I don't know how the polling would like move on. So it would be good enough like if we pose the questions directly to the participants.
Yeah, that's fine. Or I will ask the question. I'll even ask the question, Nirmala, and if they can, everybody should have an option to do like do they have an option to do a tick mark and a cross mark on their screen? Do you know?
I think they can.
Do you know?
They can say yes or no.
There is
a yes.
That's fine.
Yes.
So we can use the tick mark and the cross marks as the yes or no's, and we should then get a tally, right, of how many people. Sounds good.
You're all fresh in the morning, huh?
I had to be. I was like, oh my God, I am going to be talking to all of you, and you guys are going to be nice and awake, so I better try.
So much again.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Nirmala, just so that I'm clear, right? Obviously, I'm going to be sharing my screen for my slideshow. At that point, should I keep the camera off then so that I can go through the slideshow and then turn the camera on for questions? Does that make sense?
Or you can keep the camera on.
Keep the camera on?
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be good, Divya. Yeah.
Sure, sounds good. Sounds good.
Nirmala,
Yes,
Sumaira Rafiq has to be made the co-host. She has come in.
Doing right away. Miss Razia Sultana has like shared the screen. If she could kindly put it off, it would be great, I think.
We never allowed Razia Sultana yet. No, she's there inside. Dr. Razia, can you please stop sharing your screen? I don't find her inside the participants list.
Yeah, she's not there.
She's not there even in the participants list. How can she share screen?
I think Divya ma'am is doing that. I think so, ma'am. Divya.
No, I'm not sharing any screen.
No.
It was named as Dr. Razia Sultana.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
We have Razia Sultana in the participant list.
Ifat, the prayer girl has still not come. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Majida.
Majida.
Time before 45, I'll find out from her, ma'am.
Ma'am, Majida has come, ma'am.
Live YouTube.
Majida is inside.
Sajida is here, ma'am.
Majida, the prayers.
Not it, not it.
Oh, she's there in the participants list.
Is there, it seems. Kalpana, please allow her in.
Maji.
Yeah, Maji, right.
Ma'am, has she joined?
Yes, I will do, ma'am.
Okay.
She's joining.
Majida, can you please unmute yourself and say a hello?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. You can mute yourself, Majida.
Quick check to all. Is the screen visible? The speaker screen visible?
Yes.
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 But Nirmala, it is not there in full screen. It's coming in a PPT view.
Yes.
Kalpana, it is 4:50. Please allow everybody inside.
Yes, ma'am.
कसं लागते ते
Very good day to each one of you connected here. There are certain things that we would like to announce from our side. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box. We will take it up at the end of the session. Feedback form will be posted daily in the chat box. Kindly fill up on all 7 days to get the e-certificate. The audio from the host side is muted for all the participants. We request you not to unmute it. Also, please connect with your earphone hands-free for better audibility.
Hello.
हे म्हणायचं ते कानात घालायचं खायचं प्यायचं झोपायचं जेवायचं की
I would like to repeat the announcements. Kindly mute the audio from your side. Do not unmute it.
Okay, ma'am. Hello?
The audio from the host side is muted for all the participants. We request you not to unmute it. I would like to repeat the announcements. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box. Feedback form link will be posted in the chat box towards the end of the session. Kindly fill up on all the 7 days to get the e-certificate. The audio from the host side will be muted for all the participants. We kindly request you not to unmute it. We also request you to connect with your earphone, hands-free for better audibility. Thank you.
Hello, once again, ma'am. Ma'am?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Raghavan.
Yes.
Madam, daily e-certificate கொடுக்குறீங்களா?
No, not at all, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
At the end of the 7th day, it will be given, sir.
Okay, thank you. Daily, actually 5 to 6, 1 hour.
Yes, 1 hour. Yes, sir. That's right.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank
you. Preeti, can we begin? It's 5.
Yes, ma'am.
Assets. Okay, then this component tells you learner.
Good day to each one of you connected here. Welcome to day 3 of the 7-day International Faculty Development Program on Leadership Excellence, jointly organized by the Department of Corporate Secretaryship and Information Systems Management, Justice Bashir Ahmed Said College for Women, Chennai, and Guru Coaching and Consulting Company, Doha, Qatar. The session for the day is on Next Generation Leader, Envisioning and Engaging by Ms. Divya L.V. Jagasundaram. Let us begin the session with a prayer. I now request Ms. Majida to recite the prayer.
Surah Al-Alaq, chapter 96, verses 1 to 12. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان لا يطغى أن رآه استغنى إن إلى ربك رجعى أرأيت الذي ينهى عبدا إذا صلى أرأيت إن كان على الهدى أو أمر بالتقوى. Translation. Yes, the most merciful. Read in the name of your Lord, who created man, a cloud of congealed blood. Read, and your Lord is most generous, who taught knowledge by the pen, taught man that which he did not know. Nay, indeed, man transgressed rebelliously, because he sees himself self-sufficient. Indeed, to your Lord is a return. Have you seen the one who forbids a servant when he prays? Have you seen if he, the servant, be upon guidance or enjoins righteousness? Jazakallah.
Thank you, Majida. I now request Dr. Nazira Parveen, Assistant Professor, Department of Corporate Secretaryship and Information Systems Management, to present the speaker's profile to the participants.
Thank you, Preeti. Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. It's a moment of honor to extend a hearty welcome to this August gathering. I quote John F. Kennedy, "Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other." I unquote, on behalf of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship and Information Systems Management, in collaboration with Guru Coaching and Consulting Company, LLC, Doha, Qatar, it gives me a great privilege to welcome you all for this third International Faculty Development Program on Leadership Excellence. I am delighted in welcoming the resource person, Ms. Divya L.V. Jagasundaram, to address on Next Generation Leader, Envisioning and Engaging. Ms. Divya Jagasundaram is a 4-time best-selling author, certified fulfillment life coach, mentor, senior lecturer, international keynote speaker, and proud creator of Coach Wisdom. She spent more than 13 years as a successful banker and youngest bank manager in both UK and North America. Different life experience showed her interest and passion for helping others to formulate and achieve their goals. She is recognized and honored for her career success and service to society, and internationally known for her work. Focus, ambition, and strong personal drive have been inherent qualities that Divya has emulated in all aspects of her social, family, and professional life. Divya's ongoing efforts helped her quickly to be recognized as a young woman with an ability to motivate, inspire, empower those she meets and works with. Her enthusiasm in sharing the profession and benefits of coaching has resulted and deeply empowered her clients to lead and live a full life. Divya is an award winner of Women in Management Canada. She also received upcoming Entrepreneur Award. In 2019, she was nominated as one of the Canada's top 40 women entrepreneurs. It is indeed a privilege to have such an eminent personality amidst us today. We deem it an honor to welcome you, madam. Once again, my hearty welcome to all the participants of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazira. I now invite the speaker of the day, Ms. Divya L.V. Jagasundaram, to take over the session.
Hi, everybody. So good evening. Preeti, I think because my video was stopped, I'm not able to start it.
We will just try to set it right.
No worries. I can start it now. Okay, yeah. Yes. Perfect. So good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Before I get started, I would like to just thank the organizers and and just say it's such an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you. I've been really excited to sort of share some of my own thoughts on leadership and on the next generation of leaders. And really my topic today is how we can sort of envision new generation leaders or next generation of leaders, as well as engaging them. So I'm going to just share my screen with you. I did want to start today with a little bit of a case study, actually. So I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. If you can't, please let me know. And thank you, Preeti. Thank you. I think it was Preeti for the introduction there. Or I'm not sure who gave me the introduction, but I thank you all the same. This topic, everyone, is actually very, very important to me because as a mother of 2 daughters, an auntie to various nieces and nephews, and being engaged in several forums across the globes with youth and different genders, background, temperaments, faiths, cultures, ambitions, successes, and failures and achievements, it really dawned upon me that there actually should be some more innovative and operational methods, goals, and even measurements for the next generation of leaders. I do want to just say that for today, I am sharing a lot of my views, a lot of my thoughts. You are absolutely welcome to disagree with them, and I look forward to then opening the floor to some questions as we proceed with our conversation and with the presentation. I do want to start by saying that I, for one, believe that we all have leadership potential within us. It's sometimes argued, are leaders born or are they made? And again, we can get to that a little bit later, right? I believe that we all do have leadership potential, leadership capabilities, but it's what we do to sort of either harness it, or what are we doing to try and pull those out. Preeti, I think there's a couple of people unmuted, so I'm not sure if you can see that.
I request the participants to kindly stay muted. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. So I do believe that being an authentic leader, right, both inside and outside, is also a lifetime pursuit, right? It's something that we have to keep working at. And then that's however long you've been a leader. I do actually want to get going also with a little bit of a case study. So I thought this is probably a good way to start our session. So everyone, I'm going to give you a couple of details, and I want you to just be thinking or trying to visualize what's sort of going on in this little case study. And then I have a few questions for you. So with the questions, we couldn't get the polls to work, but I'm going to ask you all, as I ask the questions or as we put them up, for you to either give me a tick mark or a cross mark so that we can get an idea on what your thoughts are. Okay, so as I start with this case study, before I do that, I do want to ask you guys, do you think leadership has an age? Does leadership have an age? And maybe you can give us a tick mark if you think it does, and a cross mark if you think it doesn't. So you should all have access to be able to do that. I can't actually see once that's done, so I guess somebody might need to tell me.
In the participants list, you have a yes
or a no. And as you're thinking about that, I'll let you do that as I sort of tell you about this little case study, and you can kind of create the scenario in your mind. So there's a lady by the name of Joanne. Okay, Joanne is somebody who is extremely shy. Okay, not very confident academically. Has always thought that they have substandard abilities when it comes to anything academic. So whether it's true or not, we don't really know, but that's at least her own thinking, and somewhat supported by people around her, sort of always told, it's okay, you can do something else, you know, you don't have to aim for like the highest jobs, to aim for something that is well paid, but you know what, this is your capability. At 16, Joanne decided to go to get a Saturday job at a bank, and was a teller, a cashier. Okay. At 18, Joanne decided that, okay, she wanted to go to university and she was going to do law. At this point, she'd been given a place, hadn't passed the exams yet, but the bank manager had called and said, actually, we'd like to offer you a management trainee program. You can do that. Why don't you work your way up in the bank? You could potentially be a good leader of the organization, and you can take your time with it. So at 18, Joanne decided, instead of going to university, because she didn't think she was very good at it anyway and very, very academic. So it seemed almost like, okay, why don't I go and try and do something else? Okay, at 18, Joanne decided, yes, I'll go pursue the banking career. But what happened was Joanne started facing various roadblocks as she started to move her way up the corporate ladder, starting with applying for just the next position, which was a head of cashiers within the organization. At that point, Joanne was told, you've only been in this organization for X amount of years. You're still really young. Why do you want to rush into leadership positions, right? There's no need, right? You can take your time. So take your time with it. And also you need to understand the culture of the organization is such that people who have been there longer than you will need to be offered positions before you. So Joanne started to understand that, okay, right, this is how corporate world works. Leadership isn't something that is going to be a skill necessarily that you are going to portray or develop over time. You basically have to be of a certain age, or you have to have a certain amount of experience. Okay. Then, so Joanne sort of took her time, said, okay, I'll stay here as the teller a little bit longer. Another opportunity came up, same thing happened. Now this time, the bank were also a little bit worried of losing Joanne, because they knew that she had some kind of potential and she's a good worker, right? Puts her head down, gets on with it. What happened though is the next job that she'd applied for as well also was told by HR and by management. They kind of sat her down and said, what are your goals? We see you applying to all these different jobs and they seem to be a jump up from what you're doing. Are you not happy? And she said, no, it's not that I'm not happy, but I have certain ambitions, certain goals that I want to achieve. And I didn't go to university because I thought that, you know, I'm going to do something as a leader. I want to be a young leader. They asked her to then, you know, make this goal a little bit more specific. And this person said, Joanne said, you know, I want to be the youngest bank manager, maybe in the country. And the youngest bank manager at that time was about 25 years old, 26 years old, right? So at that point, they said, well, great ambition, but pretty impossible, right? That person was a totally different kettle of fish. They, you know, gone to this amazing university and did this and did that. So again, Joanne started feeling like, okay, maybe there's an age to leadership. I'm only 18. Maybe I need to like give it some more time. Maybe I'm not going to be accepted. So when we look at even another question, I'd like to ask you all, can a leader be competent, inspire, and lead under the age of 25 years old, do you think? Do you think a leader can be competent, inspire, and lead under the age of 25? Because a lot of people would argue that you need to have quite a bit of experience, right? How would a 25-year-old, or, you know, basically a kid, right? Somebody who's maybe gone to university, come out of university, maybe not that much life experience, how on earth would they manage to actually lead, inspire, and be competent at what they're doing, empower people who are maybe much older than them? Okay. Which brings me to my next question. Do you think a person has a better chance of success if they're older? And maybe for older, let's say above 45, because maybe you've got, you know, you'll have a decent amount of years of experience under your belt at that point, right? So again, some yes and no's here, right? Does a person have a better chance of success if they're older? Now, what happened is Joanne kept on going. She kept trying. And then she decided, okay, I need to do what I need to do in order to obviously keep moving. And whilst everybody is saying it's impossible, what can I do? So slowly, Joanne started getting mentors. Joanne started getting role models within the organization, started reaching out to people who had already maybe followed a similar path, right? She also fell into the whole academic circle of things when she was told, actually, how are you going to be a leader when you don't have a degree? Because what happened within the corporate structure was things changed, right? Now the management trainee program that she was offered was now only open to graduates. So how was she going to now get through all of this corporate stuff and the bureaucracy of everything that was going on and actually get to any kind of leadership when, you know, she didn't have the academic sort of background or skills? She, again, remember, was a very shy, not confident sort of person, and was being told that, you know, all these boxes have to be ticked. So another question I want to ask you guys is, in this case study, so far from what I've told you, do you think that she made it? Do you think that she actually was hired? And let me be a little bit specific here. The year of all of this was 2005, right? Which means we're looking at 15 years ago. So think for a moment about where leadership was maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, compared to how we're looking at leadership now, right? So this person, Joanne, you know, tried to apply for this job. That's what happened. Applied for a managerial position and I'll be really specific with you guys. Youngest bank manager was 25. She applied for it at 21. So at 21 years old, applied for the job, was being pitched against a 30-year-old, 35-year-old, 45-year-old, 50-year-old, and a 60-year-old. Now, I didn't have the option to give you all of the different numbers for you to actually put in your choice of what you think, you know, the person, what age, who got the job, right? But if you look at leadership maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, compared to even where it is now, we've actually seen a fair amount of changes, right? So the last poll that I want to ask you here is, again, in this case study, was this person hired, right? And hopefully, again, I can't see any of the numbers. I can't see what the poll results are. Maybe we can hear about them at the end, right? Because I am curious. But think about that, okay? What I do want to go on to say here is if we start to look at what is it to be a leader, what does it mean to be a leader? For me, at least, I feel like leadership is about, first of all, having a vision that is bigger than yourself, right? Bigger than this moment in time, bigger than anything else that we're actually thinking right now. Leadership is about making even your vision a reality, right? Letting something sort of come out of this, sprout from it, develop from it, and actually embrace the whole process. And for me as well, a true leader is someone who inspires others to become who they truly are. And we're all going to have different ways of doing that. I think if we all sort of cast our minds back to a time where we've had either, or we've experienced good leadership or bad leadership, I think we've all got experiences of both. I know I certainly have, right? And if I look at the leaders in my life who did motivate me or who did encourage me, right? They were the ones that I have the fond memories of. Those are the ones that I was inspired by. Those are the ones that, you know, I felt I could look up to and become like, and I would aspire to be like. Also, like I said, flip side, you've got the leaders who maybe were very unsupportive, right? Who maybe made you feel like really you're not worthy of even being in a position, of even doing anything, right? So we all know what it's like to have both of those sort of experiences. If we also look at a little bit of the definition, right? If we look at the next generation of leaders, what do we mean by the next generation of leaders, right? Again, I said earlier, we all have, at least I feel, we all have that potential within us, right? To be leaders. But by cultivating it, it actually helps us to become more influential and fulfilled, and even to lead more enriching lives. Now, again, when we look at the next generation of leaders, I want to start with a definition, because the definition of the next generation here, it can be boxed into into a time frame of age, right? Or even maybe a period of time, right? Say, for example, people who are currently between the ages of like 25 and 30, who will evolve into the leaders over maybe the next 25 years. And that could be in all fields of human behavior and endeavor. Now, the other approach is to look at current leaders in their maybe 30s and 40s and maybe even more senior, who are prepared for a regeneration of ideas and even targets, okay, in all levels of life. And that this regeneration is to actually utilize experience and a vision to understand the changing spectrum of both expectations and of knowledge, right? And then to provide relevant leadership, not just revered leadership. So if we look at, again, maybe some of the changes, right? What was leadership like before and what is it like now, right? Or what is traditional ideas and views of leadership compared to the next generation of leadership, right? And what we're maybe now open to. Because I do feel that we are a lot more open now to perhaps younger leaders, to different ideas, right? To thinking outside of the box, right? We see a lot of even parenting nowadays, right? Encouraging children to have a bit more freedom of speech. And I see that anywhere in the world, right? I work with clients globally and parents globally and children globally and see this. This is something that is happening throughout, right? So even if you were from the East or you do have, maybe you're from Indian origin or Eastern origin and you have typically grown up in a more sort of stricter household, even in those situations, I'm seeing children totally being encouraged to speak their minds. Very, very different to how it was when I grew up, right? There was some of that, but there was still the very, very much, you have to taper what it is that you're going to say, right? Don't cross the lines, right? Make sure there's, there's still that respect in everything that we're doing, right? You're going to see, again, children even nowadays, yes, there's the respect somewhat being encouraged. However, again, a lot of freedom of speech, a lot of thinking outside of the box, a lot of, independent thinking from a very, very young age. We're seeing even schools now supporting that, right? Interesting, I thought, that we see leadership being introduced at such a young age, even within the school network now, right? And that's something I've seen definitely here in North America and the UK. I would be interested later on for someone to tell me how it is in India, right? But I know even in places like Singapore, in Malaysia, right? Very, very encouraged, right? We're even looking at having children and youth develop their speaking skills, right? Their ability to speak publicly and lead from a very young age, almost encouraging this thinking process or this thought process that there really is no age to when leadership starts.
Hi, everybody.
When we look at the next, or we look at the definition here, we can also think we've got the next generation of leaders being a combination of aspiring youth and the inspiring of experience, right? So people who have all of that experience and inspiring others, right? Or again, people who are aspiring to get into certain positions, a little bit like Joanne in the case study. Right? So the parameters for the definition is particularly vital, I think, in India, as it does have the largest youth population in the world, right? Bursting to really present itself in the entire spectrum of life in India and also on the world stage. I do see as well, aspiring leaders of today, so our Generation X and Gen Y, are much more open to the kind of inner work that one has to do. And I'm going to, again, get to this a little bit later, right? But what I find is the younger generation of leaders actually doesn't have the teachers to teach them, right? So again, when we're looking at the definition of what is the next generation, we're looking at who are the next generation of leaders, right? that then actually brings us into, I'd like to talk about some of the characteristics of a traditional leader. And again, you're all welcome to disagree with this. This is all from my opinion, okay, and my views. Characteristics of a traditional leader, right? For me, and even when I sort of asked this question, I asked it to a lot of my coaching students in some of my classes. I said, guys, tell me in your mind, what does a traditional leader look like? And these were some of the most popular things that came out. So I thought I'd share them, right? It was that to be a leader, you need to have at least sort of 20 years of industry experience, okay? Also, we go down the male-female battle here, right? But that we have more male leaders than female leaders, and that male leaders or men are able to lead better than women, often because of the fact that, and the thinking behind that is often that we're not, or men are not as emotional as women, so they can lead from their head and not their hearts, okay? Other characteristics are that it was very sort of authoritarian, right? There was that hierarchical sort of feeling within leadership. Traditional leadership, maybe career versus a job. So you'd find leaders would be in the organization and be with that organization for perhaps, you know, a fairly long period of time. And if not, maybe their whole career, they would start somewhere. So a little bit like Joanne, she might start at that sort of 16 or 18 years old, work her way up, work her way up, work her way up, keep on going until retirement. And then yes, at retirement is in that sort of senior position, but it's taken her like 40 years to get there, right? And a lot of traditional leadership, some might say it was fear-based versus support-based, right? So fear-based, again, going more into the fact that it was very authoritarian, right? Very hierarchical, right? So these are some characteristics that were picked up on for at least thinking about traditional leadership, okay? If I now take you to thinking about some characteristics of next generation leaders, the next generation of leaders, you'll see there's a rise nowadays of people getting into personal development, right? We see so many coaches even, right? I see so many coaches. I've been in coaching now for 9 years, and I've been a senior lecturer for the last 8 years, right? And I've over the last 8 years, I have certified myself over about, I would say, over 1,000 or 1,200 individuals to become coaches. Now, obviously, not all of those people have taken coaching to the next level, but a lot of them, obviously, or all of them, at least came in with the intention to sharpen their own skills, whether it be for leadership, whether it be for, you know, HR, whether it be to actually help others in the organization, whether it be for helping people in life, right? Or even to go into this as a business for themselves. But there's a rise, right? There's people wanting to get in to personal development, right? There's this quotient now of fulfillment, right? That we also see in the next generation of leaders, or even again, you know, people in the last sort of 5 years, you know, 8 years, you hear a lot of people talking about fulfillment, about progress, right? About happiness, right? Fulfillment and progress for a lot of people is going to equal that happiness, right? Characteristics of next generation of leaders, if they're not happy, if they're not fulfilled, if they don't know the why, and they're not buying into their own why and their purpose or vision and mission of what they want for themselves, the happiness quotient goes down. And when that goes down, the passion, the excitement, the enthusiasm for their job and their career goes out of the window. And then you'll find they're not bothered about staying in that career, right? They don't mind moving. Right? Our next generation of leaders aren't feeling that, hey, if I am in one job, I need to stay in that for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? I have the freedom of choice. I have the freedom to jump ship, right? If I'm not happy, right? There's a happiness quotient that comes into play nowadays for many, many people that I believe we didn't see so much of in, you know, I don't know, let's go back, say 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years and more, right? at that point, there's a need, right? And if I have a need of, say, looking after my family and earning a certain amount and keeping a roof over my head, getting my kids to go to university and put them through whatever I have to do, then I'm going to do it. It really doesn't matter if I'm fulfilled or if this inner core of mine is not, in sync with whatever else I want. It doesn't matter if, I'm not passionate about my job. I'm doing my job because I have things that I have to meet. I have commitments, right? And that's what is different right now, right? We're constantly hearing words like this from the younger generation, or again, our next generation of leaders, quite willing to jump ship if they're not happy. Hence the reason for the exit strategy. I would say 90% of our next generation of leaders all have an exit strategy. They're already thinking, I'll be in this for X amount of time and then I'm going to jump. Then it's on to the next thing. It's on to the next thing. And that, I'm not stuck. So maybe we could even argue, is it loyalty, right? Loyalty or that affinity to an organization, is it there regardless? Questionable, right? Also adaptability and flexibility, right? We see a lot of our next generation of leaders, right, actually being a lot more adaptable, right? Maybe a lot more flexible, maybe a little bit more willing to, again, get creative, right? A different sort of mindset that they come in with. We don't really see so much of the hierarchical, authoritarian sort of nature of people, right? And where traditional leadership was, like I said, a little bit fear-based, right? If you're the leader, you wouldn't really even be calling that person by their name, perhaps. You'd call them sir, you'd call them ma'am, you call them Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, whatever, right? Whereas now it's actually, okay, how can we as leaders get on the same page as our team, as our employees, right? What is it that we can do to, again, look at inspiring and our employees, right? Our teams. What can we do to engage the hearts and the minds, right, of the people that we work with, of our subordinates, so that we can now, again, look at leading our teams better, empowering the teams, right? It's about also encouraging that personal development, right? We hear a lot of people saying, I want to become that better version of me. I'm striving to be that better version of myself. What does that mean? And you could probably even ask yourselves that question for you right now, because again, we're all leaders. If we go back to what I was saying at the beginning, we're all leaders in different aspects of our life, right? Whether it's even in your household, whether it's in your family, right? Whether it's in your job, whether it's in your business, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, personally or professionally, we've all got that trait, and we're probably all expressing leadership qualities in different ways, right? So again, we look at the mindset, we look at the adaptability, the flexibility, the willingness to adjust, right? And not being maybe so rigid. Okay, so we do see that in our next generation of leaders as well as being co-creative. And why do I say co-creative here? It's because, again, where you've got in traditional leadership, where you've got people who are thinking, okay, no, I'm the boss, right? The buck stops at me, or I have to, whatever I decide goes for everybody else. In a co-creative sort of environment now, leaders are encouraging the rest of the team to get involved, right? There's a lot of teams, there's a lot of emphasis on team building the team morale, right? Bringing everybody together, right? Getting everybody on the same page, that, you are growing together, you're succeeding together. If somebody succeeds, everybody succeeds. If somebody fails, everybody fails, right? It's that co-creative environment that I'm not better than you, you're not better than me. We work on everything together. There's a oneness, right? There's no sort of superiority. So something else that we're seeing a little bit of a change with. Now, if we look at how do we engage new generation leaders, for me here, I was thinking it could very much be about encouraging more thinking and less following, right? Maybe the awareness of even speech and action, thoughts and feelings, right? Keeping lines of communication open. Also being able to create an open space, right? To seek knowledge. Also the sharing of mistakes. Earlier I said, we have our next generation of leaders right? Who are very open to learning, right? Very open to going within and being introspective and seeking more, seeking the knowledge. However, they don't have the teachers to teach them, right? So creating an open space to actually seek that knowledge, right? The sharing of even mistakes, right? And as a coach, right, I can't very well be giving a presentation or speaking and not bring coaching into it, right? Whereas some leaderships that have changed now, right? It's that ongoing support, and really that's where coaches come in, right? That's where coaches come in to help to provide leaders with a sounding board, right? A confidant, somebody to share ideas with, somebody to bounce ideas off, right? Somebody to help assist them in actually moving forward in becoming that better version, right? Releasing some of the stress, being able to, help that person enhance certain qualities, right? And really take themselves to that next level, which again is where we see a lot of changes, I feel, or I see, even with the corporations that I work with, being actually very encouraging and supportive of the role of coaches within the corporate world, right? And within the corporate structure. Because a lot of people have actually started to see, or a lot of organizations, at least in my experience, have started to see the benefits of coaching and what coaching can do in the long run, right? If we're going to be in a position where we're going to encourage leaders or younger generation of leaders to come in, right, then they do need support. And I think we have to recognize that, right? Because there is still maybe some life experience that comes into play, right? Again, I don't have the numbers yet of how many of you thought, leadership had an age, right? Or, whether even Joanne was even given a chance to become a leader, right? And again, leadership comes in sort of all shapes and forms and different, ages and stages of life, right? If we start to look at who or what will provide the envisioning and the engaging, this is something else I wanted to touch on. Throughout the unfoldment of history and human endeavor, right? And even various affairs, they've always been across various different cultures and civilizations, individuals or groups of individuals who have been able to provide that vision of the future. And I think we could probably agree on that. Now, some become organized into institutions that then again formed a sort of structured method and agenda, and then guised itself into the curriculum of education. Some also remained as individuals who just inspired ideas that then catered for individual development. But history has actually proved that not all the visions of the inspired leaders were maybe humane or even beneficial to mankind, right? Probably, again, something we could all agree on. Now, presently, the following are entrusted to provide what I like to say twin requirements. And I use the word twin, okay, and not two, because one is knowing and the other is acting, right? So knowing and to know something and not to do it, right? To know and not to do is really futile knowledge, right? So knowing and not acting, totally futile knowledge. Also, acting without knowing, one would argue, I would certainly say, is utter stupidity also, and that's to put it mildly, right? To act and really not have the knowledge behind you, it's ridiculous. So envisioning and engaging, right, are two sides of a coin, if you like, right? And if you look at even intellect is what we will then do to apply whatever it is that you know, to apply the knowledge, right? So intellect then is really applied intelligence, I think we could call it, right? When you've got the intellect, you can now apply it to whatever it is that you need to do. So again, when we look at, and I want to touch on this, right? Who is it that supports leaders or influences leaders or helps to create leaders? Really, it could be parents, right? It could be siblings. It could be wider family members, friends, right? A range of even educational institutions. It could be religious and cultural organizations. It could be the things that we read, right? So reading materials. Now, let's bring even social media, right? Social media, medias of sound and vision and various representations. Also maybe individual political masters, right? Collective assembly of maybe some politicians, right? Leaders of industries and commerce, right? Sportsmen and women, right? We see again, youngsters or new generation of people being so inspired, right? By so many other people around us, right? It could even be the materially rich and affluent that sort of influence leadership, right? It could even be the spiritually rich and affluent, right? It could even be your spouse. It could be your children. It could be just a friend, right? Leaders, influences of leaders, guys, come, I believe, in so many different shapes and forms, and knowingly or unknowingly, right? Willingly or unwillingly. You could be at many times in your lives be placing yourself as a teacher, right? Because you don't know who it is, and maybe sometimes you do, right? Again, knowingly, unknowingly, willingly, unwillingly, you could be placing yourself in the role of being that teacher, placing yourself as a teacher, right? And what you pronounce, what you say, what you do then becomes a teaching in and of itself. So your position from that regard could actually be considered to be sacred. And therefore, I do want to also say here, you want to actually pay reverence and become responsible to your role. Okay, respect your asana, your seat, right? Respect your seat. For me, I like to remember a quote by, I grew up with, from a Sai family, or in a Sai family. And I know that a quote that I like to always remember is that the role of a teacher is not only to instruct and inform, but also to inspire and transform, right? The role of a teacher is not only to instruct and inform, but also to inspire and transform. So earlier when I said that envisioning and engaging are twins, right? If we look at childbirth, one will always be delivered first, right? And then the second, right? But the first can only be supported when there is a second, otherwise it's only one, right? Otherwise we can't call it twins, it's just going to be one. So to me, when we look at engaging and envisioning, I like to say that engaging is the first step to envisioning, right? So just like one has to engage the on button before the television then produces the vision, right? So we've got to take that one step, and then, then the TV comes on, everything else sort of happens. So in any given task of value and importance, there are also 4 steps, right, to observe and implement. And it's the order of first, okay, perception, right? So what is it that actually we perceive, right? What is it that we see first? And then second is proximity. So as we get closer, right, is what we perceived actually still correct or not? Is it accurate? So checking the accuracy and understanding. Then it's identification. So really actually tying that now to what it is that I can do as a leader, or what is it that I'm doing? What is it that leader can do? So identifying what the role is and getting clarity. And only once you've understood it correctly, you've gotten close to the subject matter, you've like I said, understood it, right? And you're accurate with all of that, can you then actually work towards getting the result, right? So really, is what is being perceived, is it accurate, right? When we look at proximity, are we going towards the idea, right? Or were we totally wrong? Are we going away from something? Even in terms of identifying it, are we able to clarify whatever it is in our own mind, right? Within our knowledge and capacity, followed by, because when all of that is in sync, you then can get your result. Now, as years have passed, or in the years gone, discipline was the only communication, right? Which is why I go back to what I said earlier about traditional leadership being about, you know, being an authoritarian, being hierarchical, being sort of fear-based, right? Discipline was very much there. But the foremost discipline, or that being the foremost discipline in current times, right, in this new wave or age of you know, leaders that we're seeing, it's about communication, right? It's not so much about discipline, right? Now communication is the first and foremost discipline, right? So in these days, remember, where we see so many children spending hours communicating with unknown friends, right, or maybe social media or other ways, right? They've become, if you look at another difference between leaders of before and the leaders of now, right, or people, or maybe our next generation of leaders, and why we have a duty to really try and inspire them and bring them out, is because times have also changed in a lot of regards, right? I know when I was growing up, I was always encouraged to speak, right? I was always at the dinner table. We'd always have dinner together, right? There's always conversation. We would never have a television on, right? We also had only, I think in England, like 4 channels at that time. So your TV show is done and it's done. And really you don't care that everything wasn't TV centered or technology centric, right? But now we see kids getting so engrossed in technology, in social media, and again, talking to friends, so many devices, to the point that they've almost sometimes forgotten that art, or they're not being taught the art of communication, right? And we all know that actually communication is such a huge part of things. So we have a duty as well when we're looking at engaging our new generation of leaders, it's to actually see how we can cultivate all of those great skills that our traditional sort of leaders had. And one of those being that ability to communicate, right? The confidence to communicate. So I do believe as well, you know, we're living in an era nowadays where we are gearing many things towards sort of luxurious living, right? And it sort of has to be, I think, reformed at a sort of root and branch sort of level, so we can instill that human and social conscience again, and to learn to also live with that character and dignity, right? I know I'm running out of time, I think, but I want to really end some of this with giving you the results to the case study I started with at the beginning. So first of all, I want to say that that case study, that person did get the job, right? They were actually given the opportunity over all of the other, it was 7 participants in total, 7 other people that had applied for the job, all older than her, right? And that person was me. I am Joanne. I was the girl that was told no, 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 right? I was the girl that decided to not go to university and instead pursue the career in the bank, and to make it a goal to become the youngest bank manager in the country. And whilst I had a leadership team who were all, they wanted to be supportive, but at the same time, they were saying, Divya, it's impossible. It is impossible. It is impossible because you don't have a degree. You don't have this. You don't have that, right? How are you going to do that? So that's when I decided to go and get the role models. I needed mentors. I needed to see how other people did it. I needed to learn what the qualities were to actually be considered a leader, right? What was it that I would need to be able to do? What is the skill set that I would need to acquire? So this is going back to 2003 when I was told that pretty much impossible, because you know you have to be in the bank for X amount of time. You have to go through all of these different stages, and I did go through those stages. I did do every role that was there in the different steps in order to get to that managerial position. But then when I came to Toronto, Canada, lo and behold, same thing happened. Toronto, HSBC Bank transferred me over here and gave me a wonderful salary, gave me, you know, relocation, paid for my visa, did all of these things. And I step into my first day, and within 10 weeks, I'm being told by a 49-year-old lady, Caucasian 49-year-old, who'd been in the bank since she was 18. So imagine how many years. And she pulled me in, and this is week 10 of my week 12 orientation. And she said, Divya, I think HR have made a mistake. I don't think it's fair that people who are older than you and who have been in the bank longer than you are not being given this position, and they're not being paid the sort of money that you're being paid to be here. I think you need to go back to being a cashier again. To which I said, okay, how long do you think I should do that for? I thought she was going to say, do it for a week, then you go to the next position, do that for a week, and just so you get some exposure. But she said, Divya, you're young. Why are you rushing into leadership? You don't need it. You can be a cashier for the next 6 to 7 years, and you shouldn't aim for anything more. So at that time, I'd already become the youngest bank manager in the UK and in Europe at 21 years old. And I had been transferred over here at 22 and was then told, hey, spend the next 6 to 7 years, go back to being a cashier. From there, you can move your way up, become an account manager. You should aim to do that for about 5-6 years. Then you can be a senior account manager, aim to do that for another 5 to 6 years. Then you can try and be an assistant manager, right? In between them, you want to have some children, you want to get married, you want to do other things, great. But then you should aim for assistant manager. Then after you've done that for 5 to 6 years, you can think about coming into maybe a middle manager and then going into a bigger branch. And then you can look at getting into management. At that point as well, I decided I need to make it a goal for myself to become the youngest also in North America. And that's what I did at 25 years old. Now, many people would have said, oh, you know, wow, you did it here as well. You did all of that. So why leave? And I can honestly say, I go back to maybe being one of those new generation leaders where I was so unfulfilled, right? After doing all of that and working my way up and establishing myself, getting what I wanted, right? The fulfillment quotient, the happiness quotient, all gone. And then feeling like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. I need to do something else. Hence the reason for how I then got into coaching. And now it's been 9 years since I've got into coaching, and I am able to help a lot of, I now go back to banks, I go back to corporations, and I do exactly this. I go and I engage the younger team members and really help them take on even their first managerial positions. What is it that they need to lead, right? How do we actually cultivate a different sort of culture? What do we do? What is it that drives the younger generation, right? We talk about the sharing of mistakes. What were the mistakes that we see happen, right? Again, creating that open space to then also constantly be in a position of seeking knowledge, right? There's a beautiful quote by Tony Robbins, and he says, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So really there is no age, right, to any sort of any learning, right? And I think that that's a really important point, which I'd like to end with, right? And again, I want to go back to also, if you're a leader here, you know, what do you want in your teams, right? When you're remembered as a leader, how do you want to be remembered, right? Do you want to actually be remembered by, okay, I didn't support, or people were scared of me, right? People couldn't approach me, because again, we've all experienced some leadership like that, right? Or actually I worked with my teams, I empowered them, I inspired them, right? I helped them, I helped to serve them, right? And so these are obviously some things I'd like to leave you with. I do want to also open it up to questions. I'm not sure how we go about doing that, Preet, if you want to let me know. But
yes,
I want to
madam,
thank you.
We have the questions. We have the questions.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Divya, for well highlighting the traits of traditional leaders and next generation leaders. The case study approach was indeed unique, and congratulations to you for the way you have traveled and you've reached where you are now.
Thank you.
Also, I would like to let you know that appreciations are flowing for your presentation in the chat box, both in the Zoom platform as well as in the YouTube channel of ours, where we're actually going live. Thank you so much. So I think we can go ahead and take some questions for now. Gayatri, can you take up the first question?
Yes. There's a question by Preeja Sridhar. She asks, Madam, can you justify your statement when you said men lead better than women, head versus heart? Do you have any case in point?
Oh, I actually don't agree with that at all. So that statement just came from when I knew I was coming to do this presentation and to be speaking. I asked about 50 of my students, I put it into WhatsApp groups. And so I asked them, what are your thoughts when you think of traditional leaders? And so when they looked at traditional leaders, they said, you know, a lot of them, about 30 of them out of the 50 said there was always this idea that men are better leaders, right? Because of the fact that women are supposedly emotional. Now, I would argue the opposite. I would actually say leadership is about engaging, you know, the hearts and the minds of the people that we're with. And so actually having that sense of emotion and having that sense of one's heart is absolutely an advantage. So I'm actually on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think that, you know, as leaders, I think you're at an advantage when you're a woman. So I don't know how well that's going to go down, but that's my thought. So.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. And there's a question from Dr. Sumaira Rafiq. And she's asking, how can we teach the new generation leaders to overcome failure? Because many of them have low tolerance level. How do you take it up?
I think actually that comes, and it's a great question. I think it comes from actually being able to share experiences. I think a lot of our younger generation leaders, there's that openness to want inspiration, right? They put themselves in a position of wanting to know more, of seeking that knowledge, right? There's this idea of, again, personal development that we're so lucky to have already instilled within so many of our youth nowadays, where they, you know, we see quotes because of, again, maybe social media, maybe different followings, right? Lots of youngsters like quoting different things, the power of the mind and thought, right? Speech, right? Actions. So I feel like when actually you tap into that and you tap into the fact that, and you encourage failure, right? And actually say, you know, failure is part of life. And when we can share those experiences and not, as leaders, not shy away from the experiences of failure, then that now inspires confidence. It inspires confidence that it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to talk about the failure, but what did you learn from it, right? And is it failure or is it a learning experience, right? So again, what is the perception that you have of even something not working out? When I look back on things, and again, these are the sort of things that I share even within my coaching or within my sessions with even at corporations, right? It's actually, do you think it was an experience? Do you think it was failure? Or do you call it even, you know, maybe fate, you know, there was something better for you, right? And I have youngsters, I have younger leaders actually saying that back to me. Actually, Divya, like, it just wasn't meant to be, right? It wasn't meant to be. So they remove even this idea of failure from their mind quite early on. So that's how I sort of tackle it.
Thank you.
Okay, there's one question now from Mary Manonmani. She asks, women-led countries seem to have done better in handling COVID situation. What is your opinion?
I would agree with you. I don't know why, but I would agree with you, right? I 100% agree. Canada, I will say though, had with Justin Trudeau, he did get on things very, very early as well. So he was compared to, again, some of, you know, whether we look at England or we look at the States, right? At least Canada actually jumped on things quite quickly. But I'll be honest with you, I have deliberately started to kind of keep myself away and not turn on news or anything that's COVID related, just because I started noticing. I've got two girls, two daughters, and they're almost 11 and 8. And I started to notice that, you know, with, again, the news and everything that was constantly being played in my house, it was, you know, there's an impact even for them. So I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna not really pay too much attention. But going back to your question, yeah, I feel like women-led countries have dealt with the situation much better.
Right. There's a question from Dr. Nandish Patil. He asks how to become a role model for transformational leadership.
I think you have to have gone through, if you're going to be a role model in anything, you need to have first of all gone through some sort of experience yourself, right? Where I have found success in any of my sort of leadership programs or leadership coaching with corporations, with private clients, is because of my story, right? It's because I've actually gone through something, the experience has been there. And so now they have something to either ask me about or, you know, mentor off me with, or they say, okay, you know what, you are a role model because you've been through transformation. Now, I do believe that as far as transformational leadership is concerned, if you've gone through, again, any kind of transformation or any experience, it's just important, if you're wondering the hows, look at what your own career has been. Start to look at your own highs, look at the lows, right? And look at how you transitioned. How did you transition through any of those things? And when you can start to actually make a little bit of a, an experience out of it or a story out of it, this is what you then need to be able to do. You also need to be able to get some speaking opportunities or get yourself, even within your organization, into some sort of platform where you're putting yourself in a position to inspire others, right? Again, if we go back to the role of teachers, or even for me, the role of leaders, the first day that I was about to step into my managerial position in the UK, I went and got my parents' blessings, and my father's literally said to me, he said, remember what Swami says, right? Swami says the role of a teacher, the role of a leader is not only to instruct and inform. You're going into this role not to just tell people what to do, right? But you should go in there wanting to inspire them and transform them. So in any sort of leadership position you're going to take, it's not just to, okay, talk about what you did, but how are you going to inspire that person? And how do we get inspired? It's by actually then listening to the experiences of others and hearing about the struggles. Nobody wants to hear also just about the good things, right? People want to feel that you're human, that you've gone through something, right? There's been a journey, and how did you come through stuff? How did you overcome something? How did you work through it to get to where you are now, or to get to a position of even being a role model for another person, right?
Thank you, Divya. I think
there's
yes, ma'am. I think we're coming towards the end of the
no,
session.
just one more question from Muni Ratnam. Yes, I was muted in between, I'm sorry. There's one question from Muni Ratnam. He asks, what is the one quality that you would pick out of all the qualities for a good leader?
It's my favorite quality, and it's to use your heart, right? It's to use your heart. Again, a lot of, I remember when I went in as a leader at the beginning, despite what my father and mother had told me and how I'd been brought up, I had looked at leaders around me and thought I needed to be a certain way, right? I thought that, okay, in order to be taken seriously, in order to be respected, right? Because I went into a branch, my first position, imagine I'm 21 years old, and this is in England, it's in Oxford, so really Caucasian area, not many, brown people, Indians, South Asians, nothing, right? I'm going into an all Caucasian branch, and everybody there, so I'm 21, the next youngest person from me is 43 years old. My entire team was between 43 and 65. And I'll share just a really short story if we have time for it. What happened was I went in there and, again, was not received well. I should say that. I was not received well, really. If I'm being frank with you, they're looking and they're thinking, we have this young 21-year-old woman who's Indian, right, in this really white area. Who put her here? How did she get this job, right? And I had so much resistance coming in. And the only way that I won my entire team over was forgetting whatever things I had been reading, thinking, you have to go in there and you have to lay down the law and you have to do this and you got to do that and you got to just tell them what to do. You've got to be strong. You've got to be hard. You've got, all of these different things that I thought I needed to be. Ultimately, what worked for me was actually bringing it back to a very human level of using my heart. Again, engaging the hearts and the minds of people around me. So when you actually think, and so a lot of people think that actually even to be polite, to be respectful, to be kind is a weakness, right? Back in 2004, 2005, that's almost what it seemed like. It seemed like, oh, if you're being a nice person and if you're being kind as a leader, then you're weak. And I decided, okay, I'm going to change that around because these are not my core values. So knowing your core values, knowing your beliefs, actually taking it back to a human level, not seeing yourself as, again, somebody who's above, right? I have to tell you what to do. No, right? Changing the approach, engaging the hearts and the minds of the people that you're working with. And for me, at least, I've only been able to do that by using my heart, right? So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, there's just this one last question from Ethiopia. There's a person who asks, what are the parameters that are used to measure a leader?
What are the parameters? That's a really good question. I think for me, what do I look for in leaders? And maybe I'll answer it from that perspective, because I think, everyone's maybe got different ideas of, again, leadership or what those parameters are going to be. I'm always looking for, and again, all very heart related, right? The ability of that person to inspire those around them, the ability of the person to motivate, the ability of the person to communicate, and knowledge obviously comes into play as well. The ability, like, what is the knowledge of that person, right? Can they support whatever it is that they're saying? If I have a leader, or if I'm going to look to somebody for a leadership, they should be able to handle a situation in any given time better than anybody else, right? Keeping maybe that cool, calm, collected nature, right? Are you able to actually work your way through struggles and do it in a cool, calm, and collected way, right? So for me, when I'm looking at leadership, even when I was in leadership and I was looking to hire other leaders, it's a willingness. It's a willingness to actually share, right? And a willingness to learn. Sometimes, how are you going to inspire somebody? Again, going back to the question earlier of transformation, how will you inspire somebody if you're not willing to share your own failures, right? Or your own negative experiences, So for me, that's also, it's pretty key as far as parameters are concerned.
Thank you, Ms. Divya, for taking up all the questions so patiently.
No, you're welcome.
I invite Ms. Nikat Tasin, Assistant Professor, Department of Corporate Secretaryship and Information Systems Management, to propose the vote of thanks.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Good evening, everyone. I quote the words of Albert Switzer: at times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has a cause to feel the gratitude for those who have lightened the flame within us. I unquote. I deem it my privilege to present the vote of thanks. First, I thank Almighty Allah for having showered His blessings upon all of us. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our guest of honor, Ms. Divya Jagasundaram, Certified Fulfillment of Life and Business Coach, trainer, best-selling author, Canada. The session was really thoughtful with provoking, lively examples with a case study, which will be the enlightenment not only for the businessmen, but also for the next generation who is easily adaptable to the changes. Thank you, ma'am. I take this opportunity to thank our Madam Principal, Dr. Mrs. Shahnaz Ahmed, for her constant support and endearing words of appreciation. I thank our Vice Principal, Dr. Mrs. Firdaus Jahan. My heartfelt gratitude extends to the head of the department, Dr. Mrs. Barkat, without whose efforts, guidance, and support we would have not been able to accomplish what we have throughout the event. My gratitude extends also to the fellow faculty members for playing an active role in all that we have achieved together as a team. I also thank all the participants who attended today's program. I once again thank each and every one of you who have been a pillar for the successful completion of today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikat. Thank you all for your active participation. We will meet at 5 p.m. tomorrow, IST, for yet another interesting session. The feedback link has been posted in the chat box. Kindly fill up the feedback link to ensure to get the certificate at the end of the 7th day. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Divya.
Thank you for having me, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Have a great weekend.
Sure. Thank you. Here too. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will stay on for some time, Ms. Divya. So if you have to leave, yeah.
No. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Participants, if you have filled the feedback form, please leave.